He was very controlling. He was really sadly very diminishing towards women.
So I think clerkship is a kind of a humble name for what I think should be a kind of a humble job, but it's a very important one in the life of a young lawyer. So it's like you graduate from law school, you spend a year working as one of 3 or 4 people for a judge in their chambers. It has become this enormously important credential in the life of a young lawyer that matters for the rest of their life.
It is the pipeline to your future. When you read as your judge. And when you write as your judge. That can be great, but it can also be problematic when your job is to totally assume somebody else's personality and worldview.
But I think it gets into the just bigger problem of just the huge power differential between these life-tenured, prominent, powerful federal judges and these 20-something law students who often have crushing debt loads and need this clerkship to get their foot into the door of the legal profession. If a judge asks you to jump, you say, how high?
So when I was a clerk for Judge Kozinski, fairly early on in the clerkship, he called me into his chambers and he showed me an image on his computer of a naked man. It was just so startling. Like there was just no context for it, no lead up or warning. And I think just because I did view him as this mentor, it was so shocking that I just sort of numbly walked out of his office. He was very controlling. He was really sadly very diminishing towards women. He spoke about women who are incredibly accomplished in some of the most degrading terms or just with absolute contempt. I can never say that my clerkship was a good experience. I also just want to be really frank and say it also wasn't nearly as terrible as I think other women have experienced.
I heard about the allegations against Judge Kozinski from a Washington Post article in December. I probably had 30 people text me that story within the 20 minutes of it breaking.
When the story broke, I was on my way to a holiday party, and on the way there, I received 2 other texts from people I had confided in about what had happened at an event that I had participated in with Judge Kozinski earlier that summer. Over the course of the dinner, he made a handful of inappropriate remarks, some of which were kind of directed at me and how I or others should be happy to know that his dick still worked and was pinching me and attempting to feed me over the course of the dinner. And I want to be clear that like what happened at this dinner was not some sort of monumental event that I, sat at just trembling and was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this panel? Like it was annoying as crap, and it was troubling because I was just like, what is happening? Is this really happening? Is everyone aware that this is happening? Is this okay? Is everyone around me thinking that like the judge is like looking at me this way and thinking of me as like maybe some sort of weird like sexualized object, and then just like putting that out of my head and thinking, okay, like I do not want to be thought of that way. I need to like do better at this panel tomorrow to like convince everyone that I am a professional, that I am a serious person, and that I have serious views, and that's why I am here, not because I am some sort of ornamental like cute thing to be kind of like fed and played with.
The fact that you're trying to say, it wasn't that bad what he did, and then I just had to double down the next day and perform better on the panel so that it would be clear that I was smart, actually kind of makes me furious, because that really is a harm. Is it like grabbing someone? No. But does it diminish and demean you and make you feel that maybe you don't belong here, and now you're keeping a secret? And it is a harm.
Yeah, and that's certainly right. It's just I am somewhat oversensitive to some of the, pushback or criticism to me too, some of which is, you came out fine, like look at your career, like you did fine, like why are you kind of complaining? And that annoys me. And I also want to kind of just like make clear that, I handled it, like we all handled it. The point is we shouldn't have to handle it.
I've been fairly quiet on this issue, partly because I've kind of thought the last thing we need is more men talking. We've kind of, and I'm a gay guy of color, but I was just like, we've had our piece, we've been talking for centuries, so why don't we just, STFU and kind of let this play out?
Here's why I'm not so sure about that, because I think men talk about this among themselves, whether they're doing it in public or not, right? Like, I have had a million conversations with all of the men that I know about this stuff. And those conversations are different when it's just men talking. I honestly wish I could say that I had your sort of more noble motives for like not saying that much about this. Mine are a little more cowardly, which is like, I feel like I say the wrong stuff a lot of the time, and it's painful to then experience negative reactions to stuff.
I have to say I'm a coward too, and that it's not, my relative silence on this issue is not entirely noble-minded. I often sometimes make a misstep unintentionally, and this is an issue where it is so easy to make a misstep.
It's so interesting to hear you and Ian talk about these very human feelings about not wanting to be, honestly, spotlighted for saying the wrong thing. But imagine how some of these women have felt coming forward to talk about their experiences, wondering, honestly, if they were gonna just be shut down again and completely discredited. So I understand the fear. I guess what I would invite you to do is try to move past it, because I don't think it's just helpful for men to come to the table. I think it's essential. To me, at this moment, the things that are being said in public are the closest in one-to-one alignment to the private conversations I have with my female colleagues and friends. So I'm just curious, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, so
I mean,
can
here
you
we
just
are.
share with us,
It's the spot.
without violating confidentiality, I mean, can you just give us an example of a 2 to 3 man conversation about this? Because I honestly, I don't know.
I'm willing if you're willing.
Sure.
Do you have one off the top of your head?
So one conversation that I've been involved with, sort of an intra-men discussion, is this, how much of this is a generational thing? Because older men seem to be less enlightened on this than younger men. Another conversation guys will have amongst themselves is the Aziz Ansari thing, and basically say, some men think that was a bit of an overreach. I'm just saying, some men, I'm not taking a position myself, but like those are 2 examples of recent intra-men male conversations.
I would say I've had some version of the following conversation 25 times. A guy will sort of, you know, you're sitting around, you're sort of talking, and close friend, and he will describe an event in college or high school or something where he's like, as I reflect on that event, I am keenly aware that was like, there are varying degrees of this, but like, I can see this very clearly now. Like, that is not okay. And it really is a conversation along the lines of simply the shallowest version is like, do you think something bad is gonna happen to me? Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm not saying it would be, like, it's not like, oh, I'm worried I'm gonna be falsely accused. It's more like, I'm worried that a truthful account of something that I did, that I feel bad about, will be said aloud in public, and I will experience a just punishment.
I think that we are going to have to figure out a way to sit around a table and have the men at the table be comfortable enough to say the opposite of, I just want to listen, or I don't want to talk. Because we're all lawyers and we're sitting here, if there's no process, no fact-finding process, no record, it's not just that it's bad for the accused, it's bad for the accusers. I mean, it's bad for the entire system. But I will say I've heard from federal judges in the last few weeks who've said there are 2 solutions to this problem. One is that the soft pressure to resign and they go, and then the judiciary remains intact and they're gone. And the other much more alarming thing that I've heard from more than one judge, which is I just don't have to hire women anymore.
If that is the response, we certainly have not, won any kind of reckoning. If we think that a reckoning is a handful of white men losing their jobs, like, wow, that is not what a reckoning looks like.
To be replaced by a younger handful.
Exactly, to be replaced by a younger
Great.
group of white men who...
So you don't think the Me Too discussion is the beginning of anything that?
I hope it is. I don't really think that what I have seen thus far looks like a real reckoning with systemic solutions that will prevent mistreatment or harassment of women.
I think the positive thing that's come out of this is the spigot has opened. There's a safer space for victims to speak out. I would never have thought that I would have written that piece in the Washington Post and said, yes, I'm one of those people. Never. And I think the fact that this is happening is huge, because without that predicate, nothing else will happen. There won't be any remedies. There won't be any attempts to redress anything.